Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Charlene Taylor. I'm the Student Leadership Advisor here at Tidewater Community College, and I'm at the Portsmouth campus. Today, we have an exciting session about opportunities at the State Department. If you were with us in February, we had a really great session with Ambassador Bismarck Myrick. He was previously the ambassador to South Africa and Lesotho, and he is from here in the Hampton Roads area, specifically Portsmouth. So if you had a chance to see that session, you might be thinking, how do I get that job? How do I get in on this? And that's why you're here today, to find out how you can get involved with a job with the US Department of State. So today I have Diplomat in Residence, Georgesibley, and National Recruiter, Teri Scott. So I'm gonna let you guys take it away.
Okay, thank you, Charlotte. So my name is Teri Scott. I'm one of the national recruiters at the State Department. I joined the State Department in 2004 as an office management specialist, and I've served in Haiti, Saudi Arabia, Dominican Republic, 2 tours in Washington, Paraguay, and then Argentina. And now my position is technically in Washington, but I'm teleworking from Hampton, Virginia.
And my name is George Sibley. I'm a senior foreign service officer. I've been in for 34 years, traveled all over the world, but right now I'm the diplomat in residence for the Mid-Atlantic region, and that includes Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina. And it's a real pleasure to be here at Tidewater Community College today to speak to all of you. Teri mentioned where she had been. I'll just quickly run through. I've been in a little longer, so I have a bit more a few more posts. I started in Indonesia. And by the way, I'll point out, when I got hired, when you're in the foreign service, you don't know what job you're going to have. You're joining a career, not a job. So I didn't find out that my first assignment was going to be Indonesia till after I'd already been in for a few weeks. And then for over 6 months, I was getting paid my full salary to learn Indonesian before I went out, so that I would be successful in my job once I got out there. Then I went to Nepal, came back to Washington for 4 years, went to Jordan, came back and went to graduate school, which the State Department paid my salary, and the graduate school covered my tuition. That was a very sweet deal. Went to India, to Calcutta, then Madagascar, back to the States. And I was back in the States for 5 years, but I wasn't. My family was, but I did 1 year of those 5 years. I went to Iraq. But because Iraq was pretty dangerous, I was actually living on a military base. I couldn't bring my family with me. But everywhere else I've gone in the world, my family, my kids, everybody's come with me. That's the norm. Then I went back to India, then on to Myanmar, and now I'm in North Carolina, actually, right now, covering Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina. So it's a long story, but it's been a long career. It's been 34 years. So you can gather how you end up going to a lot of different places. All right. So with that background, as far as who Teri is and who I am, I'm going to start a PowerPoint slide deck, and I'm going to go through it a little bit. And hopefully we'll have some time at the end. If you have any questions, we can answer those questions. All right. I like using this as my cover slide. I know Teri's seen it a bunch of times. I always use the same one, but I really like it because it's, this young woman is obviously reflecting on the future, and the light is reflecting on the glass in front of her, and it's also reflecting on her own glasses. So there's kind of a hall of mirrors feel to it. But the message on the slide, diplomacy lessens global threats, is absolutely one of the things that diplomacy does. But diplomacy does a lot of other things. We protect American citizens abroad. We assist with American global prosperity. We address human rights threats. And it's also a lot of work to be done to maintain our position overseas. So we have IT specialists keeping our computer systems going, office management specialists keeping our ambassador on time and on schedule and out of trouble. You'd be surprised how often ambassadors get into trouble if they don't have a good OMS. We have medical personnel overseas keeping us healthy. And we have a number of different administrative jobs, financial management, human resources, general services. So we have a whole range of different things that people do overseas to advance the interests of the United States. And so who are we looking for? Well, we're looking for a diverse group of talented Americans. I love this picture, and I also don't like it for a different reason. So the thing I love about it is, first of all, everybody's so happy. How can you not love that? And it's a very diverse group of people, but there are no old guys like me. So there's the diversity that's missing on that slide is age diversity. Okay, so the other diversities look great, and there you have it. I do point out that we take all different academic disciplines. And so whatever your background is, you shouldn't say, oh, well, I didn't get a degree in international relations at Harvard University, so I can forget about it. No, if you can pass the test and get through the process, whatever your background is, there's no degree requirement. And my academic disciplines were biology and religious philosophy. So you can see it's not sort of a traditional background, but you must be a US citizen. That is 100% required. And between the ages of 20 and you have to be 60 before you join, and it takes about a year to get through the process. So usually when I talk to someone who's already 59, I say, look, it's probably too late, because you'll just get frustrated. You'll go through the whole process and then just miss the timing. And then you have to be available for worldwide assignment. Again, every once in a while, someone says, oh, I want to go to London or Rome, but nowhere in the third world. No, you got to be willing to go where we need you and get a security clearance. And so where are we? That picture is in the main entrance of the State Department in Washington, D.C. All the flags of places we are posted, 191 countries. And we have more posts than countries, because in the sort of big important countries, we'll have an embassy in the capital, but we'll also have several consulates in countries there. Headquartered in Washington, D.C., but we have passport agencies and field offices throughout the U.S. So what are the opportunities here? Well, there are student programs, both internships and fellowships. There is civil service, there's foreign service specialists, and there's foreign service generalists. So those are just the categories. Within these categories, there are even more subcategories. So there are a lot of different things that you can do in terms of getting engaged with the State Department and working with us. So to start with the student programs, the key thing is to apply early, because even for our interns, we require a security clearance, and that takes quite a long time. So for example, if you're thinking, well, how about for this summer? It's only April. The selection process for this summer already happened last fall. And so you have to be prepared in advance. Now, the great news is we've just started a new paid internship, and it looks like all of our internships are going to be paid, which I think is fantastic, because I can tell you, I was a scholarship student when I went to college, and there is no way I could have taken an unpaid internship. That was off the table. I had to make money during the summer in order to go to school in the fall. So having only paid internships will make for a lot more equity among students of fewer financial means to participate in all of these activities. So I think this is really amazing. Now, the new internship for this fall that's paid, I suggest you apply literally today. It's open for a week. So it's open until, hypothetically, it's open until April 16th. But in practice, it's going to close when there are 1,000 applications. And trust me, these applications are coming fast and furious. So if this interests you, and I put the link there, right, at the bottom in red, it's that middle one. If you are interested in a paid internship for this coming fall, don't hesitate a second. Do it today, because tomorrow may already be too late. It's possible. All right. And the paid internship, basically, it's going to be about 10 weeks. The pay is a little over $17 an hour. But here's the kicker. That $17 an hour really is going to be kind of your take home, because we are going to also provide assistance with travel, and we're going to provide assistance with housing. Okay, so if you were, say your internship were in Washington, D.C., and you had to pay for housing, basically it comes out to nothing, because you'd be spending every penny you made on housing. But we're going to provide you housing. And so it's a really great deal. If you're overseas, we're going to fly you to whatever country it is that you're posted overseas. Now, if you don't get it in today, I realize it's a very, very short notice and takes a certain amount of preparation. It may be too soon. We'll have those opportunities again in the spring and again for the summer. And our intention right now, it's not locked in yet, but our intention is these are all going to be paid. So I really highly encourage that. The only one that doesn't require, that is unpaid and doesn't require security clearance is the virtual student federal service. And that's throughout the federal government, but the State Department also, participates in that one. All right. Among the fellowships, I'm going to go through this a little fast because these fellowships are fantastic, but they're for people who are entering graduate school. So if you're at community college, you're still at least a couple of years away from getting a bachelor's degree, right? You're probably getting an associate's. And so this is something you can think about in the back of your mind for if you go on and transfer into a four-year program, then that would be something you could do after that's done. However, for community college students, the FATE Fellowship is a tremendous opportunity. That's the Foreign Affairs Information Technology Fellowship. All right, and I've included the link there so that you can check it out. If you are studying computer science or something related to computer science at the at community college level, if you want to go ahead and get your bachelor's degree in that related field with information technology, computer science, whatever, apply for this fellowship. Now, if you're already in your second year, it's too late. This is probably really for people who are in their first year at community college, because you'll make that application next year in the fall, but it'll provide about $37,500 each year for 2 years for academic funding. You'll get stipends, housing, and travel allowances for your 2 summer internships that are included, and they are paid summer internships. One would be in Washington, one would be abroad. You get personalized mentoring and professional development, but the kicker is the last one. You will already have your job waiting for you when you get out. When you finish, assuming you pass your courses and graduate and don't get into trouble, don't get arrested or something along the way, you will have a job in the Foreign Service as an information management specialist waiting for you after this program. So it's a wonderful program. I highly encourage it. It provides for 2 years of graduate work or the junior and senior years, the final 2 years of a 4-year degree. That's why I say it's great for community college, because you can go right into it and in the last 2 years while you get your bachelor's degree. So that's one I really highlight for you all. Now, on to careers. The civil service is basically these are people working in Washington mostly. Some of them are working down in Charleston, South Carolina, where we have back office for financial management, human resources, and so on. But you'll apply through usajobs.gov. Now, I put there in red, be sure you qualify. Because when you go on usajobs.gov, it's not a very user-friendly website. I apologize for that, but I didn't invent it. But you need to really read closely the qualifications, because somebody quite junior is going to look at that big stack of applications and go through and go, meets qualifications, doesn't, meets qualifications, doesn't. Everyone in the stack that meets the qualifications, those will go on to a senior hiring manager. But everyone's in the stack that didn't meet it, you're done, finished. Your application is over. So be sure you qualify, and be sure when you submit your resume, your application, it's really clear that you meet those qualifications, all right? I also put another link there. You can go into our website and see at a given moment which openings are available, because unlike the Foreign Service where you're joining a career and you don't even know what your first job is, in the civil service, you're actually getting a job. You're applying for a very specific job. You'll know your duties. You'll know what office you're in. You'll know possibly who your supervisor will be. It's for a very specific job, as opposed to the Foreign Service. All right. Speaking of the Foreign Service, there are kind of 2 categories of officers. There are generalist officers and specialist officers. Both of them do really important, really useful work, promoting U.S. interests, protecting U.S. citizens around the world. And you'll spend a good portion of your time overseas. In my career, it's been about, I'd say 2/3 overseas, 1/3 back in the States. I don't know, Teri, how about you? What's the proportion for you?
I tend to do overseas, domestic, overseas, domestic. I like to keep a nice balance and kind of recharge my battery by coming back to the US.
Okay, so for you, it's maybe more 50-50. For me, it's more sort of 2-to-1, twice as much outside as back in the States. So it varies among different people. Foreign Service Specialist Officers, there are actually 19 different career tracks for specialist officers, all right? So there are a lot of different ones. There are opportunities in security, in administration, construction engineering, IT, as I mentioned, that fellowship, that leads you into an IT specialist job. Medicine and health, most of those people have more advanced degrees, physician assistants or nurse practitioners, for example. Generally, they're going to have a strong subject matter expertise required for getting in. And the application, with 2 exceptions, will be resume based. And the 2 exceptions are for the IT specialist and, as Teri's going to tell us in just a moment, office management specialist. For those 2 jobs or those 2 careers, we have a gateway test to enter. All right. And then if you pass the test and get through the qualifications evaluation, then you take an oral assessment. So I'm going to turn to Teri, and Teri's going to talk about one of these specialists that is, in fact, her specialty, which is to say office management specialist. So go ahead, Teri.
Thank you, George. So my specialty is office management specialist career track. So an office management specialist, or OMS, what we like to call it, it is an executive assistant, what you guys know as an executive assistant, someone who supports a principal, like a CEO, COO, or financial management officer, or financial professional. So we are the logistical and administrative staff at embassy or consulate abroad. We manage the office, so we're usually the first point of contact when you go into an office. We support our department personnel. We do a little bit of light IT work. We draft correspondence, we proofread correspondence. So it's really a good field to have like those strong written and oral communication skills. We also make sure that the office is in order. We make sure that our principal is on track, making sure they get to their meetings on time, and providing any briefing materials for our principals. So for this specialty, the minimum requirement, educational requirement, is to have a high school diploma, although most of us come in with at least a bachelor's or higher. That's not required. The minimum requirement is to have a high school diploma. With a high school diploma, you need a minimum of 3 years of specialized experience in administrative work or office managing. And like I said, you'll need to possess good writing skills. You'll need to be a team player. And if you want to apply for that, I'll type it in the chat. You'll go to careers.state.gov and you apply to the office management specialist. Hold on, let me type it in the chat. You'll look up office management specialist and you'll see the qualifications. So you want to make sure that you read through the qualifications to make sure that you qualify. And there's a gateway test that you will start with. You start with pearsonview.com/OMST if you think you qualify for this. The benefits are the same, whether you are an Foreign Service Officer Generalist or Foreign Service Officer Specialist, and we'll go over the benefits later. But that's the gist of an office management specialist, and that's a name that's unique to the Foreign Service. We used to be called secretaries, but we found that, we do a lot more than secretarial work, and it's specific to the State Department in the Foreign Service. So if you have any questions, you are definitely welcome to reach out to me. I'll type my email into the chat.
So I'll tell you all, in an embassy, the ambassador has a deputy. That deputy is a very senior Foreign Service officer. But if you ask most people, who is the second most important person in the embassy, the deputy or the ambassador's OMS, most people would be quite correct in saying it's the ambassador's OMS. It's a very important role. So, okay. Now, the other thing that Teri is going to talk about a little bit is not a specialist, but it is an opportunity for someone who has language skills, okay? And that is our, whoops. Why am I not advancing? Here we go, Consular Fellows program. So go ahead, Teri, if you're not hoarse, give it a try. Tell us about the Consular Fellows.
So the Consular Fellows program is a 5-year limited non-career appointment program where you need to have fluency in a few languages: Spanish, Portuguese, Mandarin, or Arabic. So if you think you have fluency in those languages, this is the right career track for you to apply. Like I said, it's a 5-year limited appointment career. So you wouldn't be tenured. And it's a good opportunity for you to kind of dip your toes into the water to see if it's something that you might want to be interested in later on. Some people don't see themselves in this career for more than 5 years. 20 years just seems like a lifetime for some people, but honestly, it goes by really fast. So the Consular Fellows program is the right opportunity for you to kind of test it out to see if it's something you want to do long-term. And usually people who do this career or this career track, they find that they like the lifestyle and they end up applying to be a Foreign Service officer, generalist or specialist. So this one, you also take a gateway test called the Consular Fellows test. And it's offered all year round. And like I said, you'll need to have fluency in Spanish, Portuguese, Mandarin, or Arabic to qualify for this program.
Thanks, Teri. And one thing I mentioned, that I know there was somebody in the chat who was mentioning being age 60, because this is an LNA, limited non-career appointment, it doesn't have the same age limitation. So in fact, someone was telling me that there's somebody 80 years old who is joining the Consular Fellows program in the most recent class. So you don't have that age limitation, but you do have to have those languages, which is, a fairly high threshold for a lot of people. But if you have one of those 4 languages and speak reasonably well, want to give it a shot, you don't need to worry about your age. Okay. So on the generalist side, now on the generalist side, unlike the specialist, where once you're in that career, that is pretty much that specialty is what you're going to be doing throughout the length of your career. The generalists can move around a little bit among these career tracks. You have to select one, all right? Consular is one. I have them alphabetically here: consular economic management, political or public diplomacy. But I, for example, my first tour was consular, because everybody's first tour is consular. We need a lot of entry consular officers. But then I did political work for a while, and I did economic work for a while. And then when I reached the management level, I was doing all of them because I was supervising all 4 or all 5 of these tracks. But when you apply, you're going to have to do a couple of things. First, you're going to have to pick that career track. And then second, you have to write those 6 personal narratives, which are short essays that are demonstrating your ability to join, or your readiness to join the Foreign Service. Now, I will say something, again, for the benefit of folks in the community college. One of the things that is frequently the case in community colleges, in my experience, is you get a certain number of people who are older students. They're not people who have just come out of high school and are going into community college. I mean, there are some of those too, of course, but there's a larger mix of ages, let's put it that way. And I think that's an advantage, because when joining the Foreign Service, particularly as a generalist officer, but for others as well, someone who's only been in school but hasn't been out in the world sort of with life experience has a hard time with those personal narratives demonstrating that they're ready for the responsibility of representing their country overseas. They might be, but there just isn't enough of a track record to be sure. So I mentioned this for those of you who are on the call. If you went to Tidewater straight out of high school, yeah, you have the same problem that someone in a 4-year school does coming just out of school. But if you're somebody who's been out in the world and working and has some life experience, there is not an education requirement. So applying from the community college is perfectly fine. So you should feel perfectly ready to do that if this is something that interests you. The process takes a long time. That is the reality, and I don't want to sugarcoat it. And you can see from this, very homemade slide that I made. You can tell it's homemade. There are a lot of little balloons that you have to go through. So the first was the register that I told you about. Then there's the Foreign Service Officer test. And so if you look at the bottom left there in red, that is the link to the practice test. And here's the thing about the practice test. If you take that practice test, you'll get a score that will give you an indication are you likely to pass the real test or not? You'll get a score that will indicate that for you. And so it's really useful if you're thinking, well, should I do it? Shouldn't I do it? I've heard the test is really hard. Well, you can find out how hard it is. Take it. And if it turns out that you do reasonably well, but not quite well enough, here's a hint. Don't close the window. Because if you still leave that window open after you get your score, you can actually go into the test and see what you got wrong and what you got right. And that tells you what you do need to study and what you don't need to study in order to bring up your score, right? That what you're getting right, you've got it. Don't need to study that. What you're getting wrong, that's where you need to focus your efforts. So I really encourage that practice test, because that's the first hurdle. Second hurdle is the qualifications evaluation panel. That's where a lot of those, smart kids without a lot of life experience don't get through that hurdle. And then the third hurdle, the assessment hurdle, is the oral assessment. And it will bring you into Washington, D.C. You'll spend a whole day in Washington, D.C. going through this assessment. And at the end of the day, they'll say, okay, Clarence Harper, you are being offered a conditional appointment. And it'll be an exciting moment, but don't quit your job, because you're not on the payroll yet. You still have the medical clearance, you have the security clearance, the suitability panel before you get placed on the register. And the security clearance can take quite a long time. Just be honest about that. But once you're on the register, that means you're waiting for that phone call that says, hey, Clarence Harper, we need you. Come and join us. And then you will be on the payroll, and you'll be heading to Cape Town, South Africa, or Buenos Aires, Argentina, where Teri was, or Rangoon, Burma, where I was. And it's an exciting moment. All right, so that's sort of the process. Here are some of the reasons why people join. Well, first of all, public service. The chance to represent your country overseas it's a great honor. It's a big responsibility too, but it's a great honor. The overseas lifestyle, the chance to live and travel in a different country is tremendous for many people. You'll have challenging and meaningful work right from the beginning. You will feel like you're making a difference, and that's very important to me and for a lot of people. The next two are kind of linked: lifelong learning and constant variety and change, because as you go from one country to another, you have that variety and change, but each time you go to a new country, you have to learn about its political system, economic system, its culture, its language, maybe its geography, its food. I love going to a new country and exploring the food that they cook there and serve there. And so that is an element of being in the foreign service, that variety and change. You may be learning foreign languages, and then the benefits are quite excellent. In fact, I know, Teri, I hate to put you on the spot. You want to talk about the benefits a little for a moment?
The most important benefit for me, well, not most important, but the one that I value the most is having government housing, not having to pay rent. All of our utilities are taken care of. We usually just worry about the internet and have some extra cash to just, do what we want. So that's probably the most important benefit. Also, we do have we have a TSP, which is like the equivalent of a 401k. So you just contribute, and you'll have a nice retirement at the end of your career.
Now, you contribute and the State Department matches. So if you don't contribute, you're being very foolish, because you're leaving money on the table. It should be yours.
Right.
Yeah, I should point out the housing benefit is available when you're overseas. When you're back in the States, it's not. All right, you have to provide your own housing in the States, but overseas, that's covered. Obviously, the travel is covered. The health insurance, the government pays for 70%, you pay for 30%, but that's a pretty good benefit. So there are a lot of excellent benefits. So last slide is, do you want to know more? That website, careers.state.gov, is a fountain of knowledge. There's so much, 10 times more than I've told you about is available on that website. Second is me. That's my email. After we're done here, you have any questions at all you want to follow up with and get information about, don't hesitate. I'm happy to answer any questions you've got. Just fire me an email and I'll get back to you for sure. And then there is the tiny URL that Teri has put in the chat 2 or 3 times now already. And the advantage of that is, as I said, the first advantage will be, I will send you this slide deck, a copy of it, and I will send you my most recent monthly message for April. and you will join our talent network. And as opportunities become available from time to time, we'll send you messages about those opportunities so that you can, if it matches your interests, you can follow up. If it doesn't, you can just delete it. All right, that I'm gonna stop sharing and then ask Teri if she has a few final words for us, and then open it up for questions.
I don't really have anything further to add. Just I think this is a great opportunity, especially from people from our area. We have that military link. So I think this is just a natural progression into the Foreign Service, the State Department, just having the ability to travel around, see the world, and represent your country. I think it's an opportunity that you can't really pass up.
And I see in the chat, the question I noticed hasn't been answered. Are there distinctions made between naturalized citizens and US born citizens? No. If you're an American citizen, Danielle, you are an American citizen. That's that. The only thing that affects it a little bit is getting your security clearance will likely take longer. Not saying you won't get it, you will, unless you are working for the intelligence agency in the country where you came from, right? But unless there's something unusual there, you still can get the security clearance. But because when you were born or previously had a different citizenship, it will take longer for them to look into your background before getting your security clearance. But as far as eligibility, no, if you're an American citizen, how you got it, that doesn't matter, okay? Let's see, are there other questions here? So for Aurelia, the links, many of those links will be, particularly when I send you my monthly message. Some of the links you saw were in the PowerPoint, and I'll send you the PowerPoint. But the other thing is, when in my monthly message, I have a lot of links to different programs that are available, different opportunities. So when you get that monthly message, if you want to capture some of the links there, you can certainly do that. So really the key, if you want those links, I would say definitely sign up on that tiny URL that Teri put there, and you'll have all of that, okay? Isaiah, on the prior military service helps with security clearance. I asked that question recently from one of our security officers, and the answer basically is slightly that it depends. Yeah, it'll help a little bit for sure, but it won't really help unless you had a top secret security clearance with the military. And a lot, in fact, probably most of the military security clearances are secret, not top secret. And so if it's not top secret, basically we go back and talk to a lot of the same people at a greater depth for the top secret security clearance. So it ends up taking almost as long as starting from scratch. Not quite, but almost. But if you had a TS, a top secret in the military, that could help quite a lot, okay? Let's see, does your trip or assignment include the family? Yeah, absolutely it does, with very few exceptions, all right? So I think I mentioned that I went to Iraq when it was still a war zone. And because of danger, my family could not come with me. So I was there only for 1 year, but my family was back in Virginia, actually, while I was overseas in Iraq. But that's out of 34 years. That was 1 year. And I will point out, I volunteered. All right. They didn't, nobody put a gun to my head, said I had to go. But I had been working on Iraq for a couple of years. And I thought, I've sent so many people to Iraq. It's time I stepped up and did my part. And so I went. But yeah. Okay, so everywhere else, my family went, including my kids, and the schools overseas are excellent. Really, really excellent overseas schools. So I can't, for kids, it's an amazing experience that, they become global citizens in the best possible sense, okay? Can you apply for the fall and spring? So you will apply separately for each internship. So, if you don't get the fall internship, there will be a new opening that you'll be advised of for the spring, and then there'll be a new opening that you'll be advised of for the summer. And as I say, it's looking like, I'm not guaranteeing it because it's not 100%, but we're striving to make all of these become paid internships and not have unpaid internships anymore. I hope we succeed. If we have the funding, I'm pretty sure we will. But yeah, it's like you're starting all over again. Doesn't lock you out. You can, you're starting again. So is the job top or secret? So basically, to get your employment with the State Department, they're going to get you a top secret clearance. Now, whether in the specific job you have, you end up needing that or not, it could depend, but you have to have it to join the Foreign Service, to join the State Department. So they'll get you a top secret clearance, okay? And yeah, so can naturalized citizens be USCIS officers? I mean, I think the answer to that is yes, but that is not part of the State Department. So I'm not really qualified to give you the answer for the Customs and Immigration Service. You'd have to direct that question to them directly. Yeah. How long do the internships last? I believe it's about 10 weeks, if I'm not mistaken. So 2.5 months approximately. I know sometimes interns at the end of their internship, if they're abroad, stay for a couple of more weeks to travel, on their own, use up the money they've earned. But I think it's about 10 weeks. So it's pretty much that semester you'd be as an intern. A lot of questions. Anything else?
I had another question. So I'm in school. So if I get the internship, then how will that affect my school?
Yeah, so you probably will have to leave for that semester. Obviously, if it's in the summer and you're not in school in the summer, then it's not a problem. But these internships are pretty much full-time.
Yeah.
And it's looking like after 2 years of all remote internships, which have been a pity, we're now moving back to in-person internships. And I can tell you that when I joined a couple of years ago, right? It's been all COVID. I met this young woman who'd been selected to go to Dublin. She was so excited to be going to Ireland. I can't even tell you how excited she was. And no, she kept the internship. She still had it, but she did it from her home, from her bedroom in her home. So it was kind of a pity. So hopefully we're going back to in-person internships.
So is that you're not officially in-person yet then?
So Abby, the plan is indeed for it to be in person.
Okay.
But if the epidemic suddenly changes and goes in a bad direction, I won't guarantee you that they would stay in person. The health of the people that work.
Yeah,
for us
definitely.
Okay.
Okay.
Any questions for Teri? Be careful, I'll ask her one. Teri, what was your favorite posting and why?
That was my question, George. I think Teri stepped away for a moment, so maybe
Looks
you
like
can tell us your favorite
Sure.
post and why.
My favorite posting was actually Calcutta, which has now been renamed as Kolkata, which is in Eastern India. And the reason it was is I went out there, I was the consul general, so I was the senior diplomat in that region. And India is such a big country. My consular district had 280 million people living in it. That's almost, not quite, the size of the United States. And it was very diverse, included the third highest mountain in the world, the largest delta in the world. And in fact, in my April monthly message, in my little stories at the end, I talk about my time there. So again, if you sign up on that tiny URL, I'll send you that monthly message and you'll read a couple of stories about my time when I was in Calcutta. So Raven, what led us to want to work? Well, Teri, when you get back, chime in, but in the meantime, I'll keep going. So Raven, after I was in college, I didn't want to go back to school. I'd had enough. And so I joined the Merchant Marine. I was a civilian, not military, but I was a civilian mariner and sailed on ships all over the world, which I actually loved. And it gave me the chance to travel and see many different interesting places. But then I met this beautiful woman, and she was very foolish, and she married me. And as a result, she said, you know, when you're going to see 8 months out of the year and we're apart, that's not very good. And I had to kind of agree with her. So I thought, well, what could I do, still travel the world and do it with my family? And I had grown up in Mexico, so I had gone to an international school there and knew kids whose parents were diplomats. So I was a little familiar with it, and representing my country sounded like something I really was interested in doing. And so I applied, and I was very lucky. I got through the first time I tried, because I will tell you all this. In the most recent classes of the Foreign Service officers, we've done a poll, like, how many times did you take the test? Now you're an officer, but how hard was it to get here? And fewer than 25% made it through the first time they tried, which means over 3/4 had failed at some step along the way the first time that they tried. But they had persistence and determination and a real desire to pursue this career, so they tried again. And in some cases, 5, 6, or 7 times again. And made it in. And by the way, once you're in, you're a Foreign Service officer. It does not matter how many times it took you to get in. There's no stigma. Nobody even knows. So that's the one piece of advice I would give people. If this is something that interests you, don't get easily discouraged if you don't make it the first time. Try to understand why you didn't, and then try again. You have to wait a year before you try a second time, but go ahead and give it a shot. Now Teri's back, so we're going to ask her, what's your favorite post and why?
So I majored in Spanish in college at Old Dominion University. And so I always had this passion to travel and work and serve the country. So that was my path. I did an internship in Mérida, Mexico, long time ago. And from then I fell in love with the State Department, and I just pursued my path into the State Department from there. So then the first opportunity came to apply as an office management specialist. And so I applied. And I got in, I had the interview, and it was fine. It passed. And that was pretty much where I started. And that was back in 2004. Actually, I applied in 2001-ish. And it took so long to get in with the security clearance and the medical clearance. It took about 2 years for everything to become.
Gosh.
Yeah, it took a long time. Probably because I had done some traveling. But I just kept at it, and I just moved on with my life. Like, it just happens when you least expect it, when they call you. So just keep working. That's my best advice, though.
Yeah. How did you get the work experience that's required for the OMS position?
So when I was in school, I had worked in my school district, Hampton City Schools, with the ESL instructor. I was administrative assistant. And so that's how I got my experience. I think I did that for 2 years, 2 to 3 years. And then I eventually started teaching Spanish. But that administrative experience really helped me a lot. And I didn't know it was going to help me at all.
Yeah.
So that's what just keep working, get that experience, because you never know where it's going to take you.
Yeah, that's great. And then the other question that we had is, what was your favorite posting and why?
That's so tough. People ask that all the time. They were all great for different reasons. Haiti was amazing because I had a good group of, people there that really supported me. Argentina was also amazing. If you study languages and you study Spanish, it's like the epitome of what Latin America is. Saudi Arabia was actually really good too. Saudi Arabia was extremely developed compared to Haiti. People there drove Maseratis to the mall, Porsche, like the most high-end cars I've ever seen. So each post is different for different reasons. I can tell you what's my least favorite post, but it wasn't because it was terrible. It was just because it was really boring, and that was Paraguay. People ask me, would you ever go back to Paraguay? I'm like, no, not really. Once is enough. But I mean, it was a good post. It was just really quiet and just boring. But I would go back if I had to.
Mm-hmm. So we've got a question from somebody who's doing the prerequisites for funeral science and wondering if that's what she really wants to do. And she or he, it could be Angel or Angel. So I'm not sure if that's, I'm sorry, I don't want to make any gender assumptions here. But she, her, okay, thanks. But yeah, I mean, I would say, you know, apply to, I mean, I would apply to this internship coming up. I mean, but literally you have to do it today because we're going to reach that 1,000 limit and it'll be gone because it was so new that they only opened it for 1 week and only up to 1,000. And we are not going to make it through the week before we get to 1,000. If not, I mean, you can wait for the next internship, which would be, you know, for next spring and try for that. But I would say the other thing is, as you're thinking about it, I don't know if you're doing any computer science courses, but that FATE fellowship is really a terrific opportunity if you're at all interested in computer science. And definitely they're trying to expand gender diversity because to be quite honest, the proportion of males in the IT field is pretty high. So that would actually, you know, the gender diversity would really help you. But, you know, if you're not interested in computer science, don't do it. I'm just, you know, trying to throw out some ideas for you. As far as other aspects of the career, I know Teri has mentioned some of her background that led her to become the office management specialist. And the other advice I would say is just go to careers.state.gov and explore, because there are just a lot of opportunities there and you can see what, you know, seems like it fits for you and what doesn't. You have any suggestions, Teri?
I was going to comment on the funeral science background. So, like we take all specialties, all majors, but, you know, even within funeral science, you probably have excellent management skills, organizational skills, good people skills. Those are skills that are transferable to the State Department. So even if it doesn't work out with funeral science, I would still pursue an internship because you can apply any of your skills that you learn throughout your coursework and throughout life to the State Department. So I would definitely apply for an internship and don't let it stop you because of your background.
Yeah, agreed.
Do you guys happen to have that link for the internship available to put in the chat for everybody?
Yeah, I can try to pull it off my slide deck. Let's see.
I'll look for it too. I don't have it handy, but I'll go look for it in careers.state.gov real quick.
Let's see, here we go.
So we have a few more minutes left. I was wondering if you guys also have tips on the application or taking the tests, preparing for the test, or, you know, you went through quite a process that you would have to go through to become a foreign service officer. And I know, as you said, many people, they try and they fail and they have to come back and do it again. So what tips do you have for going through that process?
So, I mean, the main tip I kind of indicated earlier, but I'll reiterate, is take that practice test. I mean, that's the first step, right? You've got these 3 hurdles. The first is the written test, and then is the qualification evaluation panel, and then there's the oral assessment. The only other thing I would say, it's actually 4 hurdles, because when you register, that's when you submit those personal narratives. And those personal narratives are what's going to be looked at the 3rd step, which is the qualifications evaluation panel. So if your narratives are really excellent, that will help you a lot. And if they're not, you're probably not going to make it through, because a very high proportion of people get weeded out there. So I would say, you know, take that practice test, see how you do. And if you don't do as well as you hoped, leave the window open so you can figure out what you need to study. You know, if it's economics, well, take an economics course next semester, right? Or you know, whatever it might be, management maybe. But that way you get to know where your relative strengths and weaknesses are, and you can, you know, build up your weaknesses so that you have only strengths. Yeah, thanks, Raven. Thanks for coming. Chiniqua, is it hard to adjust? Well, it's harder for some than for others. Let me give you an example. All right, I had 2 sons, And our older son, when we got to a new assignment in a new country, within 2 weeks, he had 5 best friends and he was happy as a clam. He just was very adaptable that way. It was easy for him. Our younger son, it took him really a whole year before he felt really at home in that country, right? And he would be unhappy because he'd miss his old friends and his old school. And so we worried sometimes, parents always worry about how their kids are doing. But today, they're both adults. They both have kids of their own. And if you ask either one of them, the older or the younger, what they think of their experience growing up, they will both say it was amazing. And they wouldn't change it for anything, and that it brought them so much insight about the world and about our common humanity that it was a wonderful experience for them. So even though our younger son was having a hard time of it, the qualities that it helped him develop are things that he would not trade for anything.
Agreed. I don't have kids, but I've seen all the Foreign Service kids, and they're bilingual, they know Spanish, they know English and another language. So it's an opportunity for kids that's, again, you can't pass up. They're world travelers. They know a lot about the world. They're extremely smart and extremely articulate. So it's definitely a good opportunity for children in the Foreign Service.
Now, the issue with a spouse is also a real question. So there are different options. Okay, there are tandem assignments. That means both you and your spouse are working for the State Department and are employees of the State Department. There are jobs in the embassy that are jobs, what we call EFMs, that's eligible family members. Many spouses do that. In some countries, you can get jobs in the local economy. Many spouses do that. But sometimes you'll run into a country where there aren't jobs in the local economy, or a spouse who has a very specific kind of skill that isn't needed, and it can be difficult. My wife was an opera singer. And so in the first country we went to in Indonesia, there was a music school that she taught at, and they were so happy to have her, and she was so happy. She had really talented students. But when we went to Nepal, that was our second assignment, they had no interest in Western classical music at all. And so she was not so happy. And I said, well, why don't you get your teaching certificate when we get back to the States, because there'll be a lot more opportunities if you've got a teaching certificate. So she did that. And turns out she's an incredible teacher. And when we went to Jordan, she had such an amazing experience teaching for 4 years that she wrote a book about it. So, but it is, something you got to work out with your spouse so that you're both going to be happy about it. Oh yeah, Aurelia, I see your last name sounds Indonesian. Apa kabar, Ibu? Baik-baik? Let's see. Question on the medical clearance. Yeah, they'll either do the medical clearance or they'll send the forms to your doctor to do them. So, it can be done either way on the medical clearance. And for civil service jobs, yes, Aurelia. So on civil service jobs, really the thing I stressed during the slides is important. Check the qualifications, what they call the min-quals, the minimum qualifications. Make sure you meet those qualifications, because otherwise you're going to be kind of wasting your time when you apply. All right. Anything you want to add, Teri?
No, not much I can add.
Okay. We're almost running out of time, but I don't mind. I can stay on for a few more minutes if people still have questions. Otherwise, we can wrap it up. It's up to you, Charlene.
Well, yeah, if anybody does want to hang back and have questions, then we can definitely do that, but we can formally close the program so that people can go if they would like. And we'll keep the room open for a few more minutes. As I said, we will be sending out the recording of this session afterwards, and I will include the video that we had playing at the beginning of the session. And I'll also make sure that we have that tiny URL that will connect you with the State Department so that you know where the resources are. So I would like to thank you, Mr. Sibley and Teri Scott, very much for reaching out to us and offering this session. I think it was very informative, and all of our participants, I think, very much enjoyed it and are excited to look forward to opportunities with the State Department. So thank you again, everybody, for attending.
All right. And thank you so much, Charlene, for your hosting us. We certainly appreciate it.